Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for French Strength Facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Melissa Rolfs. Melissa is a certified holistic health and life coach, helping busy women break free from sugar, stress, emotional eating so they can be calm, confident, and at peace around food, around sugar, in stressful situations in their bodies, in their life. She's committed to empowering women to break free from dieting, emotional eating, and self-image issues so they can ditch the diet mentally and feel empowered in their own skin. After her own tremendous history of food withholding and then later binging, she learned how to deal with the core issues around her broken relationship with food. As a result, she felt called to go to school and learn to teach other women how to do the same. She graduated from Health Coach Institute at the Holistic Health and Life Coach in 2018 and is a proud owner of Free to Be Coaching. She's a proud Boilermaker alumna living in Tuscans with her husband Chad and 2 kids. Some fun facts about Melissa is that she absolutely loves coffee. Her family of 4 members have all been born in different states, and since marrying her husband, they have lived in 4 states over 18 years. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Melissa.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Talking about moving, and you just moved again.
I know. I'm like, wait, that bio is from our old city.
You got to update that one now, isn't it?
Yep.
So where did you move to now?
We're in Phoenix, Arizona. So just about 2 hours away from Tucson. So same state. So it doesn't really count.
Yeah, you can't add to, what is it, the 6th state?
Right.
So why all the moves? What's happened? You just love to travel, or?
No, just job opportunities. And, I think I've realized that I do like variety. And so that could be a part of it, but it's mainly been opportunity driven for my husband. So that's it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's good that you're, tagging along and joining in and being adventurous. And, it's really good for, like, if we go back to our health, to our brain, neuroplasticity, to see new things, to experience new things. It's amazing what it does to our body and our brain.
100%. And that's the beauty of having your own business where you can do that. You have that flexibility, that ability to work from almost anywhere. It's worked out well for us. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you absolutely love your coffee.
I do. It's like my mom juice in the morning. That's what I call it.
I love it. Mom juice. That's an absolutely great one. Look, Melissa, I want to get to know a little bit about you. In the bio, I spoke a little bit about, your history with food, and then you went to school to learn a bit more about it so you can teach others. So what have been the key turning points in your journey to where you are today? I guess that's one of them, but what's been happening? How did you come to be where you are now?
Yeah, I think kind of my breaking point was about 11 years ago. We had a newborn baby and he wasn't sleeping. And we had a 2-year-old who had some food allergies we were unaware of and some sensory challenges we also weren't aware of. My husband was traveling for work and I had just gotten diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. And so it was kind of the perfect storm to reevaluate and look at what wasn't working. And at that time in my life, nothing was working. I was living off of sugar, soda, carbs, just trying to be energized and present during the day, but I was exhausted. I was totally depleted. And I met with a naturopath because of my diagnosis with PTSD. And she did the vitamin and mineral testing, discovered everything was really, really low. Talked to me about supplementation, left her office with a whole bunch of supplements. And it wasn't until a little bit further down the road where I learned about food and the importance of food on mood. And with our daughter's food intolerances, I got tested as well because I knew that she had gotten that from somewhere and it was me. And so I think that journey of everything feeling like it was unraveling was actually kind of putting things in place and helping me figure out why my moods were all over the place, why I was angry, why I didn't have energy, why I wasn't showing up as I wanted to, because I just didn't have what I needed inside from a physical perspective or emotional, mental perspective. So that was kind of the breaking point for me. And through that, went to school to become a coach to help other women, and have learned so much, and just kind of looked back even on my own journey and realized that my sugar and my emotional eating started in childhood. I remember being 8 years old and hiding cookies and candy in the room, and kind of using food as my vice, even as a young child. So that's a little bit of my story.
Yeah, wow. And, you just saying hiding cookies and lollies and things like that. And I mean, I guess the audience listening might be like, they know someone that's done that. Either their kid's done it, they've done it, their partner's done it. It's not like we're different or weird. A lot of individuals do that, isn't it?
Yeah. And especially for me as a mom, like I would go into the pantry and, eat a whole package of cookies and not think anything of it. And I remember taking our son to the chiropractor because he was really fussy. And she asked me, she said, "What did you eat?" Because I was nursing. And I said, "I had some cookies." I was honest. And then she asked me how many I had. And that's when I had to be really brutally honest and say, "Well, I ate the whole package." And she said, "I know you're stressed. I know you're overwhelmed and you're tired, but this is making things worse." And I just had no concept of it. I didn't know about the impact of food on any part of health besides weight. So it was very, very eye-opening journey.
Yeah, I think you just said a key thing. You didn't know the impact on food besides weight. That is something key, because there's so many individuals that just see food and they say it's either going to make me skinny or it's either going to make me fat, and that's it. There's no other relationship with it. It's either I'm going to lose weight but not touching it, or or if I have too much of it, I'm going to put on weight. There's no understanding with what you just said about the mineral deficiencies, about the mood, about triggering things.
Yes, and that I think is really frustrating to me, to be honest with you, because I think that people, if they had the full concept, I think that they would treat the relationship with food so differently. That was what did it for me, right? Was realizing that this can either really help me be the energetic, happy, peaceful woman that I want to be. And granted, there was some inner work with counseling and coaching and whatnot. I'm not attributing it all to food, but it was a very big piece of the puzzle for me.
100%. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. That's absolutely brilliant. So now as you are now, Melissa, what would you say success is for you, and what is optimal health? Because I mean, it would be totally different to what it was a few years ago, or even, a decade ago, anything along those lines. So what is success and optimal health for Melissa now?
I think for me, it's listening to my body. And I think that's really been a practice that I've had to learn over time. So I think learning to listen to my body, honoring it, and paying attention to what it needs instead of what I feel like I should be doing or need to be doing or have to, and kind of letting those ideas go and just really tuning in to me and myself and what I need, because I'm the only one that knows that. Like, we are our own best health experts, but I think we've been taught to outsource that to other people and kind of give away that power. But when you realize everything you need is in here, that's amazing.
Yeah, wow, that definitely spoke to my soul. I love that. So let's talk about today's topic. I'm so excited to talk about emotional eating, how to deal with your emotions without the food. I mean, to some individuals like me a few years ago, that wouldn't make any sense. How am I going to deal with my emotions without food? What?
Why would I do that?
I know. Why would I, when food can solve everything? To start off, let's discuss emotional eating, because it has been used a lot recently and it may actually have lost its meaning in a way. What is it? If we can understand a little bit of what is emotional eating, go back to the basics.
Yeah, in my opinion, emotional eating is using food in place of working through your emotions. Maybe for me, I've stuffed my emotions with food. So rather than dealing with the feelings and emotions and being present with them and working through them, you're using food to manage that in some way, whether you're stuffing, whether you feel maybe an emotion that you don't want to feel, and so you eat to make yourself feel better. I think it's really kind of using food to hide your emotions.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is you said stuffed. Like there's a lot of people that go, "Oh, I'm so stuffed, like I'm so full." And you're stuffing your emotions with that food. It's so interesting. So why do people emotionally eat? Is it because they just are hungry, they don't want to deal with their emotions? What would be the main reason?
I think usually they don't have that safe space or that safe container to really say what they're thinking and feeling without judgment. That was definitely the case for me and the women that I work with. Sometimes we just need that safe space where we can say what's on our mind and in our heart, not be judged, not be criticized, not be told what to do, but just let the feeling, the emotion out and give it space is really, really freeing. But I think in today's busy society, in our culture, we don't value that. We're so used to going through the motions and doing all of these things, and we don't give ourselves time to feel our feelings.
Yeah, no. And I guess what you said is giving someone a safe space. And if that individual wants to talk, which is using their mouth and moving it, they will still use their mouth and move it, but put food in it and use their mouth and move it. So it's kind of like essentially they're using up that physical movement, but they're not getting those emotions out. So that's an interesting concept about food and talking about your emotions.
Yeah, and I think the root of that could be not being heard or not feeling heard because you have something you want to say and either you don't have the place to say it or you've said something before and you've been judged, criticized, labeled, and that causes you to shut down. And so I think it's almost using, as you said, your mouth to kind of make you feel like you have a voice, but it's a false impression because you're not voicing anything. You're stuffing, you're pushing it back in when you're using food for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, those individuals would, it will give you low confidence. And then if individuals are emotional eating, depending if they have any other eating disorders, most individuals might put on weight. So then their self-confidence goes down even more. Or they might be having eating disorders like bulimia and things like that. And that could be causing even more harm to their health. How can emotional eating actually be harmful to your health? Like what can actually happen? So initially the individual starts, even as a kid, like you said, or, as an early teenager, but just wanting to talk, they feel unsafe. So they put food in their mouth. That doesn't seem too dramatic in a way, right? But if that goes on for a number of months, years, what can actually happen?
Yeah, it definitely does affect your weight, which can affect your metabolism. It can affect your blood sugar. I think another impact of it is that you lose the sense of connectedness to your body. You just get so used to kind of numbing the feelings that you don't know how to feel in your body. You don't know what it feels like to be full. You don't know what it feels like to be hungry. And so you lose that connection with yourself, which then I think also can create disconnect in other areas of.
Yeah, wow, that disconnection, that numbness. And then that can cause so many other things to happen because you can imagine those individuals getting stuck in maybe even an abusive relationship and then they just become numb. Not just an abusive relationship with food, but an abusive relationship with a partner, friends, family, work. And then it just started off with eating your emotions and now all of a sudden you're stuck.
Yeah, because usually there's a bigger issue underneath why we're eating those emotions, right? Like there's something that we need to tend to. I like to say a craving can be a messenger. And I think the same thing with emotional eating. It can be a messenger to step into what's keeping you stuck and holding you back. But we have to be aware and kind of ready to take that step too.
Yeah. And I think in my view, it may be easily masked because food, everyone needs to eat and everyone eats. Whereas if it was drugs and alcohol, not everyone does drugs and alcohol. Whereas
Right.
food is part of our society. You go everywhere, everyone's eating. It's culturally acceptable. So it kind of becomes people can easily mask that and believe that they're doing the right thing. Would you agree?
100%. And that's why it was my vice, because as a new mom, I knew the judgment and the shame would come if I were drinking or doing drugs or something in that arena. But food was legal. It was, socially acceptable. It's what we do. We throw sugar at parades. It's everywhere you go. So it just was legal and acceptable. And I fell into the trap.
Yeah, you're so right. Because if you're a new mum and, you're taking drugs or alcohol, for whatever reason, even if that was a cry out for help, you would get judged. But if you're just eating that candy, everyone will be like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, no worries.
Yep.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, like when you actually stop and think about that, it's kind of like, wow, that's just mind blowing, because it seemed normal. And I mean, it's advertised everywhere, right? The sugar, the food is advertised everywhere. We're told to have like 7 meals a day by the food industry. So it's so easily masked and easy for us to hide our emotions behind it.
Yes, 100%. And you can go to a gathering and look totally normal. I would do that. I would go to the grocery store and then I would check out and I would get myself a sweet treat, and then I would sit in my car and eat it because it was my reward for getting through the day without yelling at the kids or for whatever. Like that was my reward. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Similar to someone that might drink or do a bit of cocaine or something. I don't know. But it's someone might be laughing and be like, how can you compare the two?
I think the behavior is the same and the root is the same. I think that's the similarity. It comes out very differently, but I think addictive personality is addictive personality, and that has different, behaviors that go with it, different patterns. Some people are addicted to their phones. I mean, there's lots of things we could fill in the blank with.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So this is what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, is emotional eating a nutritional deficiency or a neurotransmitter deficiency? And what is actually happening in our body with our biochemistry when we eat emotionally? I know there's a number of questions there, but let's answer the first one. Is emotional eating a nutritional deficiency? Because at the start you did say that you were low in so many nutrients and things like that, or is it actually a neurotransmitter deficiency?
I think it's both and, to be honest with you, because I think, when your body's not getting the nourishment and the nutrition that it needs, you're going to crave things. And I have a nice little chart that kind of shows if you're craving this, you could be deficient in this. So I think that's a part of it. And I think that also the other part is that neurotransmitter piece, because as you said, when we eat something sweet, for example, that releases those neurotransmitters, the dopamine in the brain, it gives us that rush. And the more that we do that, the more sugar we need to intake in order to get that same reception, that same neurotransmitter dopamine level release in the brain. And so I think it's both and. I don't know that it's one or the other, but I think they're very interconnected.
Yeah, they're both 100% very interconnected. You said there's a little chart about if you're doing this, you're this. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, I think one of them is if you're craving chocolate, you could be deficient in, I think, is it zinc or iron? And you can find that in leafy greens. I don't have it memorized, but I can see it, the visual right there.
Yeah. It's usually, from my understanding, to magnesium. If you're craving chocolate.
Yes.
The magnesium deficiency, which is so interesting because, yeah, like you said, how many people out there are like, oh, give me a piece of chocolate? What does that mean?
And how many of our foods have magnesium in them? And how many people aren't taking magnesium supplements? And how many people have sleeping challenges, which is part of being low magnesium? I mean, we're so interconnected. I think we just haven't been taught that, or maybe don't realize that. But once you realize that, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, you're so right. And I guess back in the days for you, it would have been like mind blowing. It would have been like, what? Like when you went and saw that naturopath and when you got those nutritional, deficiencies, and when you were eating the food, you were just like, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing the right thing, right? Because at the time you didn't want to hurt yourself.
Right. And I wanted to feel good and I wanted to look good. And, I think part of my generation, we grew up with fat is bad. So everything was fat free and low fat and diet. You don't realize all the chemicals and this other stuff they're putting in there. Our bodies aren't used to handling that. That impacts your health, your neurotransmitters, all of the things.
Yeah, 100%. That low fat era. I love it. And yes, there are still individuals out there, and low fat is still the key word on a number of things. But now we're realizing that is actually not the issue, or nor should we have a low fat diet, because it can cause so many things inside of our body. So you also mentioned earlier about stress, right? I think the naturopath said to you, look, you're stressed. I understand why you're getting that lolly, that chocolate and so forth. You're just making it worse. how does stress actually link to emotional eating?
For me, I thought that eating and having that dopamine release from the sugar was taking the edge off. And it did initially. I think that's kind of the deceptive thing about it is initially you feel better. It's like, and you relax. But then I didn't realize what that does later is it makes your body ride the blood sugar roller coaster. So I had that high, I felt really good. And then a few hours later, my blood sugar would come down and I would get crabby, I would get irritable, I would get kind of shaky. And I felt like I needed something. And usually in that place, your body craves more sugar because it's easy, it's accessible, it's easy to reach. And so I was just kind of perpetuating that cycle of just riding that roller coaster. So it's a very false sense of feeling good.
Yes, you have that chocolate, it gives you that high, and then you'll drop, and then goes your other piece, and then you go up again. And I guess, you know, for new mums or any business individuals that have a high stress environment, roller coaster is their day. Mm-hmm. It's a roller coaster of emotions, isn't it?
Absolutely. So why would you add more to that? But that's what I think is so tricky, is that you think in the moment, oh, I'm doing this thing for myself, it's going to make me feel better. And it doesn't. It's very misleading. It's very deceptive.
Yeah, it doesn't. In the moment in May, when you get that release of that dopamine or, you know, serotonin, cortisol in your body, you're like, wow, feeling amazing. And then it's like, why am I crashing so fast? Why am I so fatigued? Where's that next coffee? Where's that next hit? And then, like you said, but if those individuals felt their emotions through the day, or they had a safe space, or a little ritual, or anything along those lines, where they're able to stop. I think that's the key thing. Before you go grab that chocolate, you go,
yes,
stop.
Yes. Stop and ask yourself, what am I looking for right now? That's a really powerful question. And I think a lot of us have I think kids tend to be more curious, and I can't help but think that maybe over time adults have lost that because they've been told to stop asking questions as children. But powerful questions can really change everything. And so in the heat of that moment, ask, what am I looking for, or what do I need right now? Because a lot of times you might not even be hungry. And there could be a breathing technique that you could do. There could be a prayer that you could do. There could be tapping. There could be meditation. There could be so many things you could do that are going to get to the root cause of that stress, rather than doing something that's going to have a very short-term implication.
Yeah, wow, that's a powerful question. If you're craving something, or if you're wanting to emotionally eat, but stop and what am I looking for? Wow, that's huge. Even that in itself can assist so many individuals. It's like when you go for that thing, before you go open it, you stop and you go, what am I looking for? Or what do I want? Wow. That's definitely a little click in the brain, a little lightning.
Yes, and if you're visual like me and you need to maybe make a label and put that on that package of candy or cookies or whatever, I don't know, that could kind of stop you mid-track. Like, oh, what am I doing? Because I think we just get in that habit, right? Of, oh, I'm just going to have this because it's what I do. Well, are you even hungry? Are you needing that? What's behind that?
Yeah, like having it on the fridge or on the cupboard. What are you looking for? If you're looking for nutrients, keep going. If you're looking for something else, stop.
Yes. That's good.
You have like a little flow chart for all those organized people like myself. Yes. You have like a little infographic. What are you looking for? If it's nutrients, keep going down the line. Yes. Open. No, do this and this and this.
Yes, that is good.
I love it. You have like an infographic. That's amazing. So you spoke about actual hunger and emotional hunger. What is the difference?
I think emotional hunger is this internal longing or desire for something that food can never fill. Because if you're not hungry physically, food isn't going to touch that. Food is, I believe, meant to nourish us, to fuel us, to energize us, to sustain us, to help our bodies move and help us live a full, happy, energetic life. But if you're using food for something other than that, it's like missing the mark entirely.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it'll come up differently if you're like the real hunger compared to the emotional hunger. It will show up differently in the body if those individuals are aware and when they become aware. So that's really interesting. So let's say you see a kid that's hiding lollies or hiding chocolate. What can someone do to that kid? Or if you see a teenager, stuffing like chips under their pillow, or even adults, what's something that we can do to assist them?
I think be curious. I think a lot of times being curious rather than judgmental is very, very powerful. And if you can just maybe ask, what's going on? I see that you have chips under your shirt. Are you hungry? Are you saving that for a snack? And just be curious and really try to understand their point of view rather than coming across as, oh, I see that you have chips. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And just kind of criticizing and judging and assuming. But I think if we can be curious and let them have a voice, that can be really powerful.
Yeah, being curious. And imagine if someone asked you that back when you were hiding those lollies and asked, hey, Melissa, why do you have that lolly there? Or what's happening with that chocolate? And I guess everyone that may be listening, there might be times where they, like you said, in the car, they have a stash of like their hidden lollies, or they have a stash of their chocolate, or even at work. And then instead of openly eating it, they're just kind of like, just hiding it and eating it and not wanting to show it in front of people. What I'm getting is it's a lot deeper than just eating that chocolate or that lolly. So if someone comes to you, what's something that they would work through? Or if someone comes and sees you and talks to you about these things and says, look, I'm actually hiding food, or I'm addicted to sugar, or, I'm emotionally eating, they've already identified that. What do you do with them?
Yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier. I really teach them how to differentiate physical hunger from emotional hunger. And so asking the question of, if I were you for a day, how would I know that I was hungry? Because I think a lot of times we're so disconnected from being hungry. We're so used to eating at set times, or we eat here because we have to get to the next thing and it fits in our schedule, but we're not really hungry. So I really teach people how to listen to and honor their hunger and fullness, and how to connect with their bodies and understand why they're doing what they're doing. Because if you can get to the root of that and understand the why behind the why, that's where the change happens. I think anybody can modify their behavior. They could, eat this way for a while. They could do this plan. They could do this. But unless you're really getting to that root cause, the transformation isn't likely to last, because you haven't gotten to the why behind the why.
Yeah, so you assist them to get to the root cause. With your experience, what would you say is most individuals' root causes?
A lot of times there's some trauma, actually, trauma in the past, and they may not say that it was trauma, but just from my work and my experience and my journey, I identify things as trauma. And it can be anything. I mean, it can be, a move can be traumatic, even though that can be viewed as a good thing. It can be a positive thing. It can still be traumatic. So transition can be one. Grief could be one. All of those are kind of traumas. And that's a lot of times the deeper issue going on in the people that I work with. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And it's good for people to hear that it's not just them. There's a lot of individuals out there that are using food to dim their emotions. So do you assist them with techniques on how to deal with their emotions?
100%. That's predominantly the focus, is we have to learn a different way to handle and feel those emotions. And even I think just letting them have that container to kind of vent is really freeing. I had a client just recently say, wow, I feel so much lighter after just telling you all of that. And I'm like, well, great. Because sometimes we just put it all in here and we don't want to get it out. And then we just feel heavy and weighed down. And we try to stuff to make ourselves feel better on top of that. So if you can just get that out, it doesn't have power on you anymore.
Yeah, because it does have power over you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you do the what if scenario and you play this game and what if and this and that. And then you're exhausted because you've been doing all these scenarios in your mind that aren't probably even going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that then brings on a lot more anxiety, more feelings, more emotional eating.
Yep. It's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle for some individuals. They don't know when to get off that cycle or how to get off. And I guess that's why they come and see someone like yourself that can sit outside of them and you can identify things and go, oh, let's go a little bit deeper in this part.
Absolutely. Because I think people know what to do. I think by and large, if you ask them, what do you need to do to have a baseline of health? I think they know, but we get hung up on the how because something trips us up. So if we can identify what's tripping us up or what's keeping us stuck and unable to go forward, that's where the change is. We've got to figure out what that obstacle is.
Yeah, the obstacle, definitely. And we spoke a little bit about sugar. And I know that you've spoken a little bit about artificial sweetness. And I want to know a little bit about your thoughts on that, because individuals might be like, okay, well, I'm not binging on that sugar. I'm binging on the diet-free or the low sugar and things like that. What are your thoughts on the artificial sweetness?
They're terrible. Is that okay to say? Like, they're terrible. There isn't anything good that comes from artificial sweeteners. No.
Full stop. So what are we talking about when we're talking about artificial sweeteners?
I'm thinking things like your stevia, not stevia, pardon me. Stevia is plant-based, so that is an okay one. Sweet and low, aspartame, equal, anything that has been modified, changed outside of its natural form of sugar. So I love to give people simple swaps. So if you feel like you need sweet things and you like those artificial sweeteners, stevia would be a nice replacement. Even honey would be great. Something like maple syrup would be great. If you feel like you need a sugar, coconut sugar is good because it helps to balance the blood sugar. So there are some really nice upgrades that you can use in place of some of those things that are marketed and labeled as healthy that really have no good impact on health whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I love that answer on it. And yes, artificial sweeteners, they may be definitely causing havoc on our whole gut, which then impacts our nutrition deficiencies and neurotransmitters. And it may actually be making some of those emotional eatings worse, because we believe that they're helping us, but then we're taking more of them in.
Because they're healthy, right? And then we can justify it because, oh, this is healthy. And I think that creates that mindset of, oh, this is healthy, I can have more of it. And really, it's not healthy. It's a mismarketing tactic, in my opinion, because it's not healthy or good for our bodies at all. Like you said, it impacts neurotransmitters, it impacts our gut, it impacts so many things in our body.
Yeah. And do you notice that a lot of individuals who do emotionally eat justify things?
Oh, yeah. I did that. I was really good at that. And it's actually a form of self-sabotage because you can get into the mindset of, oh, I was really good today, I deserve a treat. And then brownie becomes the whole pan. And before you know it, you're like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And yeah, there's a lot of justification in that.
Yeah, 100%. And people, I guess, can go and do this for years and years and years. It might start in childhood and then all of a sudden you're a 50-year-old and you don't even notice that you're emotionally eating and you go, wow, oh my gosh, I've been emotionally eating for the last 40 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. It's a huge wake-up call because I don't think I realized that I was doing it until probably just a few years ago when I went to write my story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this started in childhood. I thought, and I didn't take the time to look back on it. That's the issue, right? Like we don't take the time to connect and look at the dots and see the big picture. But when I did that, I was like, oh my goodness, here I thought that it became this thing in motherhood. No, it had been part of my journey since I was a kid. And I just thought it was what I did. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting because there might be trigger moments in your life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's interesting too, because then I sat back and I was like, okay, so I was 8. Where did I learn how to do that? My mom did the same thing. I remember going to my grandma's house and the first thing she would do is open the cookie cookie drawer and have cookies, give me some. And I'm like, it was just modeled. It was all I knew, because all you know is what you come from. And then you get out of the world and you see how people do things and they're different. And you can decide if you want to continue that path that you came from or if you want to change. And I was like, oh, okay, that's definitely a learned behavior for me.
Yeah, definitely. And if it runs in generations, it's definitely sometimes a bit hard to pick up because, like you said, that's all you know.
Yep.
That's all you know. And I guess, back in the days, our parents and the grandparents, emotions weren't really spoken about and developed. And, some individuals weren't, some individuals were not taught to talk and feel their emotions. It's kind of like you're crying, there's something wrong, shush. Here's something, here's a toy, here's a cookie.
Yes. And that's what my mom said. We've talked about it. And she's like, my generation, it wasn't a thing. And so I'm so glad that you have figured that out and to your family and you're breaking that cycle. So
wow, that's
we've had
beautiful.
some great conversations around it.
Yeah, that's beautiful that you brought it up to your mum, your parents. That's amazing. And then you got to be like, okay. And she saw that you're making a change in your generation. That's amazing. And breaking that cycle. Yeah, it would have been hard for her to hear that too, but
yeah.
And reflect reflect.
Yes, we've had lots of interesting conversations around it.
Yeah. Without food, just emotions.
Right. And water.
Yeah. No, I love that. So what have been the proven and successful ways to help people overcome emotional eating?
I think the habit change. I think we have to start there because that's where everything starts. And a lot of that is from changing our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about food. It's changing our mindset. It's that neuroplasticity work that's so important. And yet I feel like so many people in this space maybe don't focus on that. We want the quick fix. We want to know what to eat. We want to detox. We want to fast. We want to do this thing to get this XYZ result. And then we wonder why we don't have lasting transformation. And I think it's because we haven't gotten to the heart of the matter and really changed our habits and our behavior and our beliefs about food and ourselves. I think that's the key piece of all of it.
Yeah. Lasting transformation. That was the key word that you said, because you can get, I guess, little transformation with those little things that you said, like fasting and so forth. But to get the lasting transformation that stays and has an impact, habits, beliefs really need to be adjusted, changed, and understood.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So what would be some practical tips that you could give to the audience, maybe 3 or so, to incorporate to overcome emotional eating? Some practical steps that they can do literally after they listen to this podcast. They can go and be like, okay, I'm going to do these 3 things.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to ask yourself, am I physically hungry? I think that's great. If you're, maybe you've had a dinner, you're feeling full, it's night. I know a lot of people, they tend to emotionally eat at night because they're kind of processing the day. So maybe, before you go to the fridge or the pantry, ask yourself, am I physically hungry? And what am I hungry for? And so that could be an opportunity to either eat if you're hungry, honor that hunger. And if you're not hungry, maybe journal, maybe kind of process what's going on inside of you. Maybe you need to talk to a friend. Maybe you need to make a video. Maybe you need to type. I don't know what that looks like, but just find a way to kind of sit with those feelings so that you're not just tempted to stuff them or eat them or look for something to feel better or to kind of numb. I think that would be the first thing. I think the other thing that's really often overlooked is stay hydrated, because a lot of times we think that we're hungry and we're actually thirsty. So if you are able to stay hydrated, water can actually help with sugar cravings as well. So if you can stay hydrated, the recommendation is half of your body weight in ounces of water a day. Just kind of strive for that. That can make a big difference. And I think the other thing is allow yourself to feel your feelings. Feelings aren't good or bad, right or wrong. They just are. And we all have a very different and valid perspective and way that we see the world because of things that have happened to us, because of our lens. And so just allow yourself to feel your feelings without judgment, and that will probably bring a lot of freedom.
Yeah, 100%. I like the first one. Ask yourself if you're really hungry. So that little chart thing that we spoke about, make that, put it on your fridge, put it on your cupboard, in your workplace, anyway. And then, also feeling those emotions and staying hydrated. I think that's anyone can do that easily, without the assistance of, a practitioner or anything along those lines. I guess they can hold themselves accountable for those things. And then if need be, if that's too much, they can definitely reach out to someone like yourself or other individuals who are trained in working with this, because it's a trigger-based work, because you don't know what you're going to trigger on that individual. You don't know what you're going to unleash when they start talking about it, when they stop emotionally eating or stop eating food, because there's so many. It could be like a little big volcano. So I love those practical tips, because anyone can do them, and that's not just going to help with emotional eating. It's going to help with overall optimal health anyway.
Absolutely, because they're connected. I feel like, the emotional health piece, the physical, the mental, spiritual, we're all interconnected. And I think once we realize that, that can really change the way we perceive everything that we do to ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, you would have seen a lot of individuals change with working with you from start to finish. Some big transformations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I'm very thankful to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. All right, well, to finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is the Natural Health Podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack? And you may do this in the morning, at night, every day, once a year, once a month. What's like a little natural thing that you do to assist you with your health?
Every morning, even if we're on vacation, I will do this. I will drink warm lemon water with a splash of local honey, because that helps with allergies, and a little bit of cinnamon, because that's good for the adrenals. So before I drink that coffee in the morning, that mom juice, I will have that hot lemon water, because I know it's good for me. And because I just like it. I love what it does. So that's my best hack.
I love it. So that's warm water with honey, local honey, like I like local, and a little bit of cinnamon. Is that right?
And lemon, a slice of lemon. Yep.
I love it. I love it. That's absolutely amazing. It's definitely hydrating you.
And detoxing and purifying and helping adrenals and allergies and so many good things.
Amazing. I love finding out what people put in their waters. It's absolutely amazing, because we're just taught to drink water and everyone's like, so boring. You can add things into water. You can make it fun. You can make it medicine.
Yes, you can totally jazz it up.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Melissa, is there anything else that you wanted to say to the audience before we finish the podcast in regards to emotional eating?
I just want people to know that there's hope. I know what it's like to feel so at your rock bottom and wondering if you're ever going to be able to change, or if you will ever feel good, or if you will always be dependent on sugar or food to make yourself try to feel better. And I just want people to know that there's hope and that anything is possible. And if you're willing to kind of look within and do some hard work, it can be the most powerful transformational thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And I mean, you're evidence of that yourself. So can individuals work with you via Zoom and things like that? Is that how you can function?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And that's www.free2bcoaching.com. And I'll put that in the show notes too. And people can also contact you by Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely. You got it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time out in your busy schedule today to share this valuable information about emotional eating to individuals. And I think it's going to impact a lot of individuals' lives. Just hearing this episode might, give that lightning in their brain and be like, oh, okay, this is definitely something I need to work on. So I appreciate you putting out your energy and your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. I think that what you're doing in the world is so needed. So thank you, and keep up the good work with that.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health. content and information provided here is opinion of Mahela Raguse and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mahela Raguse does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. And in the circumstances shall the Natural Health Podcast, Mahela Raguse, any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mahela Raguse be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Health Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting your doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Health Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mahela Raguse nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in the educational content.